Hello everyone. Welcome to the Super Index AI Knowledge Series. My name is Manikandan Paneerselvam and you are watching one of our 500 video series on advanced research AI subjects. This subseries is related to graph neural networks. We have 18 videos regarding this subject. This is the first chapter. We are going to discuss the basics of graph neural networks today. It is an introduction to graph neural networks. Before starting the session, I am willing to introduce my book to the audience. This book is about artificial intelligence and machine learning basics. It's available on the internet. The publisher of the book is S. Publishers, one of India's leading publishers. Thank you. Let's start the session. The graph is the data structure. It is a universal language to describe complex systems. This means that the world and daily life have complex data patterns that cannot be analyzed with the help of existing data structures or databases. For example, if we need to identify and classify the bot responses among all the review responses on the telemarketing website, we can use neural network classification machine learning models. It is often more complex to use classification neural network models for massive sets of records and classify them based on the word relationships between all the commands in the review commands. Here, we need a graph data structure for analysis. A graph data structure is simply a collection of objects, that is nodes, along with the set of relationships, edges. Nodes and edges are graphs. See, these are nodes and these are edges. If we need to draw a graph in social networks, we must use nodes to represent individual people and edges to represent their friendships. The relationship between the nodes focus on significant characters in graphs, which are tremendous examples in the current world. Some examples are specified here. Transport between cities and terminals, and biomedical analysis in the biomedical industry. In the last 2 decades, the quantity and quality of graph data structure have increased significantly very high. People bought massive sets of nodes in graphs and data structure. Nowadays, the challenge is to create a better graph data structure. The graph structure is perfect. The real challenge is graph analysis. The potential of the data within the graph is very challenging. These challenges were solved after machine learning and neural network emerged in our world. They were solved with the help of graph neural networks. Machine learning is not the only possible way to analyze graphs. Neural network play an essential role in extensive data graph analysis. Now, we will start seeing the basics of graph neural networks. Formally, a graph GE, the graph is G, it denotes by V and E, is defined as a set of vertices V and a set of edges E, such that an edge going from a node U, that is also belongs to vertices, to V, that is also belongs to vertices, is denoted by UV. I hope it is simple to understand. There are nodes and connections. Some pairs have connections and some nodes do not have connections. That's simple. A simple graph, which is the kind that we will be most interested in, is a graph. Simple graph also is a graph where there is at most one edge between any pairs of nodes, no edges between the node and itself, and where the edges are all undirected. What does that mean? I mean, it means, right, graph is a graph, but very simple graph is it doesn't have its own self loop, It doesn't have the with. I mean, there is a connection to all the edges. All the edges will have connections in that simple graph. There is no missed edges. There is no self edges, and I mean, there's so many classes we don't have it in the simple graphs. So a simple graph we can draw very easily, and we can also denote that UV. You know, for every UV there will be a VU. It's a undirected actually. It means we also have complex data structure. See, when we say simple graph, we'll have a complex data structures too, such as self relationships. It will be having no relationship and multiple relationships between nodes. The complex data structure will have self relationship, no relationship, and multiple relationships also will be there in the nodes. We can denote the graph details in one matrix form. We call that matrix form as adjacency matrix. In this matrix, place 0 if we do not have a relationship between that particular pair, or 1. You can place 1 if we have a relationship there. The graph has two types basically. It's a directed graph and undirected graph. The directed graph means the relationship is one way from one node to another node. We have relationships. An undirected graph means both nodes have relationships. We do not need to mention a one way direction. The adjacency matrix is different for both graph models. For the undirected model, both pairs will have 1. This means that in both directions, the pair will have a relationships. Both A to B and B to A will have a relationships. For a directed model, only one relationships will be notified in the adjacency matrix. For undirected graphs, A is necessarily a symmetric matrix. If we rotate the adjacency matrix, that is flip the matrix, the data will not change because A to B or B to A do not have any difference here. Directed graphs may be asymmetric because the values will change when the matrix is flipped. Some graphs will have weight also. Some graphs will weigh the adjacency matrix. Instead of showing the relationships as 1, we can show any number to show its strength. For example, the protein relationships in the biomedical graphs, right? It has some variations actually. Some protein will have a very small relationship. Some protein will have a very big relationship. So in the real life also we have, right? We will have the person A will have a okay relationship with person B, but maybe the person A will have a strong relationship to person C. But this kind of weighted graphs is very rare actually. Don't get confused. Very few graphs only will have this concept. Now we are moving into another concept called multi relationship graphs. Simple. Multi relationship means that we can have multiple relations between the same pair of nodes instead of one. For example, there are many transport types if we draw the cities as nodes and the transport as relations. Bus, train, flight. The transport can be any. So, we must show multiple relationships between the same pair of nodes. Some cities will not have an airport. However, they have bus transport. Some cities will have flight transport. So, we must show all these in a graph. So, adjacency matrices are tensors. Multiple relationship based adjacency matrices will be written in multi relationship graphs. We have two type of multi relationship graphs: heterogeneous graphs and multiplex graphs. Heterogeneous graphs mean the set of nodes can be grouped into multiple subsets. Multiple subset of nodes can be classified within the graph. Node groups will have some characteristics. So here there are multiple relationships. If we define them, the relationships will have specific constraints such as being used only for some node groups. Some node groups never fit with some relationships. For example, if the transport example, if we show villages, towns, and cities, right, what will have as a nodes, you can automatically see that the nodes are groups such as villages, towns. Uh, the nodes here, if we show the relationship set as flight, bus, town, flight relationships will never be possible with village to village transport. So heterogeneous graphs follow node features and node group characters as essential points that help to point out edge constraints. The second category is a multiplex graphs. Here, multiplex graphs means the graphs will be decomposed in a set of k layers. Each node is assumed to belong to every layer. Each layer corresponds to a unique relation and represents the intra-layer edge type for the particular layer. If we look at our example case, we will see that for the flight, we will have one layer, for the bus, we will have the another layer, and for the train, we will have the third layer. All the cities will be shown in the all the k layers. The relationships will be shown in all the layers. Now, we can discuss the feature information. Node level features or characters will be mentioned as node features. Most often, these are node level attributes that we represent using a real valued matrix X belongs to the R. V multiplied by M. In rare cases, we will have a real valued edge feature in addition to discrete edge types. Sometimes the entire graph will have a real valued graph features. So basically, the features means the node features means, say, if you have an ID in Facebook or anywhere, you will have some common characteristics to everybody. Say the name, city where you are living, hobbies, college. So all these characters are same. Sorry, the attributes are same. Attribute count and attribute set is same, but the values will be different. That is what the feature information. There are node level features will be there, edge level features will be there, graph level features also will be there. Now we will move into machine learning on graphs. We are familiar with machine learning in a standard context, right? Covering supervised and unsupervised learning. These notions will need to be modified in a context of graph neural networks, as they are not the most useful or informative for graph neural networks. We shall study the problem of machine learning in the context of node classification on graphs, relation prediction, clustering, and community detection. We will see all this one by one. Node classification. In most cases, the machine learning model will be used on graph neural networks to classify the nodes. Initially, we need to train the model using supervised learning. If we have 10,000 nodes in a graph, 1,000 can be used as a training nodes. During training, these 1,000 nodes will be classified. For example, if we need to classify the users as real or bot users, we train the model by showing the labels. It is so simple and equal to supervised learning. I mean, it's a question actually. Is it so simple to and equal to the supervised learning? No. Supervised learning used IID, that is independent and identically distributed data. All the training data and examination records are independent. But in a graph, everything is related. We classify the nodes using the relation concept. If one friend node, right, is related to one node group, we classify the other friend as the same node group. So relationships helps in classifying the nodes. Okay, coming to the next one, relation prediction. Most of the time, we need to identify the relationships of the nodes. This is also not a node classification model. We need to train relations like supervised learning. While training, the model understands that the relation has some characters and node types. Based on the training, we can easily identify the relations of all the nodes. Missing edges can be identified based on the node types and node characters. The next one is clustering and community detection. The third category is to identify the cluster and community. Both node classification and relation prediction require inferring missing information about graph data, and in many ways, these two tasks are the graph analogicals of supervised learning. On the other hand, community detection is a graph analog of unsupervised clustering. Communities will be formed based on the node features. Okay, last category, graph classification, regression, and clustering. The final class of popular machine learning applications on graph data involve classification regression or classification problems over entire graphs. The graph itself can be classified. For example, if we create graphs as software programs, we can analyze the graph and categorize the name of the software program. Sometimes the entire program will have some values which can be used as a graph regression. In a biomedical industry, we use graph regression for the molecular structure. Sometimes a group of graphs will be clustered, forming graph level clusters. The goal is to learn an unsupervised measure of similarity between pairs of graphs. It's very simple. Why we are studying graph neural networks means because for this four classification. One is to identify the node classification. The node belongs to what? Say in a Facebook, some people are engineering people, some people are adventurous liking people, some people are movie freaks. So something like that, the groups will be identified. So that is called node classification. And second category is that sometimes the relations itself is missed. So based on the training relations, okay, the relationship means the pattern will be like this. If A and B likes ice cream, then definitely they likes movies. So similar thing will be applied to D and E. If they both have node feature as ice cream lovers, then definitely there is a relationship for them. So like that, the relationship predictions will be there. And the third one is, see, group of nodes. We can make it as a cluster and we can make it as a community also. Instead of node classification, it's a cluster community identification. The fourth one is, this is all node level, edge level, right? And we can also go for a graph level. Graph level, see, graph to graph regressions we can do. Say one graph, if it is a program, computer program itself is a graph, right? We can do classification, say whether it's a graph classification, whether it's a molecular software or the real software, or if one graph, right, it derives to one number, and if it is a mathematics, right, we can have a regression concept over there. And also we can do the clustering of the graphs, graphs itself, group of graphs we can cluster. Please continue this series. We have 17 more lessons on graph neural networks. One more time, Chan published this book. The book has been written by me. It's a basic introduction to AAML. Finally, Don't forget to subscribe to us, press the bell button, like the video, comment on the video, and share the video. Thanks for watching this lesson. Signing off from Manikandan Paneerselvam.